All right, we're back. That took a bit of time. It's COMP308, Emerging Technologies here at Centennial, and it's in the winter 2017 semester. Week 1, part 2 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about different tools. Again, I talked about Visual Studio Code, right? And we talked also about Cloud9 as an alternative. There's also Atom. I put these links up on Slack, right? Again, I recommend everybody join Slack for us to have a good communication inside the team and out. Some people prefer to use eCentennial, and I'm not going to stop communicating with eCentennial for broadcasts and stuff like that. Like I'm talking about if I have to make an announcement, I still want to make it on eCentennial and Slack as well. All coursework, of course, will be on eCentennial. Any kind of assignments, that kind of stuff can be on eCentennial. PowerPoint slides, all those things, they're going to be on eCentennial. I'm going to join the groups. There's 2 groups that I'm part of, kind of section 1 and section 2. I'm going to join them this week coming up. And when I join them this week coming up, you'll see that you'll probably be removed from one group and added to another one in eCentennial. So just hold on for that. And when that happens, then I'll put up all the PowerPoint presentations. So you'll have stuff up on eCentennial. I want to mention WebStorm before I get back into GitHub. WebStorm is probably, I would say, one of the best IDEs out there. It's not a free IDE, but you can sign up as a student for a year and renew every year. And it's a great little IDE in terms of JavaScript and Node. It's amazing when it comes to code hinting and support. I think it's a great IDE, a really good choice compared to some of the other ones. Again, things I would avoid. Visual Studio is really fat, like I said. Dreamweaver probably would not use anymore. I don't think they have they haven't really progressed it as much as I would like them to I would have liked them to progress it. Other IDEs that I used to use in the past, Aptana Studio for Eclipse. If you're an Eclipse person, you can still use that. Notepad++, if you really want to go crazy, right, and have no code hinting, then go ahead. Although you can extend Node++, pretty good. Again, Sublime, I can't say anything wrong with Sublime. It's kind of a staple for a lot of people. Don't use Coda if you're someone who's a developer. I'm not really happy with that one. But those are the ones. In this course, you're going to also have to sign up for MLab. MLab, and I put the link up here in Slack, mlab.com if you go there, because we're going to be doing MongoDB. We're going to use MongoDB on the back end. We're going to be talking about what MongoDB is, but basically what it is it's database as a service, right? So take a look at MongoLab, or MLab is what it's now called. And of course, Heroku. Heroku is where we're going to host most of our applications, our web applications, right? It's platform as a service, so not just software as a service, but it actually gives you the whole platform, just like Microsoft Azure. Right, so you can choose when you give me your assignments. Right, assignments will always have this, a link to your GitHub, right, your repo. We're going to talk about that in a second. A link, right, to your live site, either on Azure or Heroku, right, or some other live site that supports Node.js, right. That's the second thing you're going to always need for every assignment. Okay. And the third thing is a zip archive of all your files and folders that are part of your project, right? I want those 3 things every time. And any other, sometimes I also ask for some external documentation from a design perspective, because sometimes I want to see what your wireframes are going to look like and those kind of things. For the most part, I'm going to reduce the external documentation requirement this semester. It's simply going to be your live site, your GitHub link, those 2 links, plus your project files. I need those things. When it comes to group work, and you're going to work with other people, I'm going to ask everybody to submit the same stuff, all right? And also name their group members in their submission, right? And the reason for that is just in case someone forgets, right? And sometimes they said, well, you know what, Franco, didn't you hand in my work? I mean, maybe it was Jonathan. Jonathan, wasn't you supposed to do it? And Jonathan and Franco and Tom, they all forgot to do it. And guess what? The professor has no submission for that time. That's crazy, right? Because we all thought someone else was doing it, right? It's better that everyone does it with the same stuff. In worst case, the professor's going to go, oh, great, okay, this is the same one that I got from Jonathan and Franco, kind of thing, right? So as opposed to trying to figure out who's working with whom? Is Eddie working with Thiago, or is he working with, who is he working with, right? Is he working with Ali? Like, I don't understand. Who is he working with, right? I don't want that. I want to know who you guys are working with in the teams, right? So please, everyone must submit. That's kind of a requirement. All right, so a couple things to sign up for. Microsoft Imagine. I put the Microsoft Imagine list link up here as well, where you can kind of sign up as a student on e5onthehub.com, right? So that's kind of something that we can do. So either Heroku or my MS Imagine, so Azure, Microsoft Azure, are these two options. In the past, Microsoft Imagine has been very easy to sign up with, or Microsoft Azure. Now it's kind of a little bit more complex, and sometimes it doesn't work properly. Be prepared for us using Heroku a lot more because it's very straightforward, again, this semester. So stuff to sign up for. Well, going back to GitHub, we talked about, just before the break, we said, what's the difference between Git and GitHub? And I think, I think we need to draw this out a little bit more, right? So that's why I kind of pull up my little drawing pad. Again, I'm going to use this as my whiteboard or blackboard, whatever you want to call it. So I want you to think of it like this. And forgive me if this messes up because this is the first time I'm trying it out. I'm kind of resting my hand on my iPad Pro, and I got to kind of point the blue ice mic at my mouth a little bit while I'm doing this thing. So let's see if this works. I'll bring this a little closer so you guys can hear me a little better, right? So you got to think of it like this. You've got your machine. So here, let's say I'm going to draw a really rough approximation of your laptop. Here's your laptop. And inside there, you have your project files. So there's your project files in here, right? And you might have several project files in here, right? That kind of kick off, right? Right now, you just have some project files, right? And if who's never had a problem where they went like this, they kind of said, it was working. Eddie and I were working on something together, and then suddenly it's not working anymore. I don't know what happened. I don't know what I did, right? Version control. That's the first reason why we want to use GitHub or backup, right? So what I want to do is I want to create an area, a repo. This another area here, right? And typically what this is inside of the project file somewhere, and it's going to be a .git kind of folder. This .git folder is where all your Git stuff is going to live, right? Your .git folder, okay? .git. Now, how do I generate the .git folder, right? Well, the way I generate it is on the command line. So here's the command line, right? Or command prompt. I'm going to type git init. All right, so that's the first command. So I'm going to type git, right, init. And what this does automatically is it creates a folder, right, on your local machine, right, that's hidden. And the only way that you can see the .git folder is by exposing hidden files and folders on your PC, right? Or if you do, if you're a Linux person, ls-al, or same thing with Mac person, you can expose the .git folder, right? That .git folder, if you delete it, right, there's no more repository. Okay, that's the first thing. So the first command is git init. That's the first thing I want you to think about. And then the second command that we're going to do is git, right, add dot, git add dot. Git add dot is going to basically say this, git add, I'm going to add something to the staging area. The staging area is almost like a place where I'm going to kind of check mark all the files that I'm going to be putting into my Git repository. Okay? I need to create an initial Git repository for the first time because that repository, or a folder, if you will, is what I'm going to use to compare all other changes to my project as I move forward. Okay? Now remember, if you can't remember this stuff, it's okay because I'm recording everything, right? Hopefully it's going to be okay, the recording. All right, so git add dot. The next line that I want to put is git commit, right, commit, and then -m for message, right, and then in quotation marks, if I can do this properly, right, initial commit, initial commit. Not exactly as easy as I thought to write this on my tablet, but anyways, you get what I'm saying, initial commit. So initial commit is kind of the best practice, or first commit. So first commit is the command I want to put in here. And if I was going to clean this up a little bit to put in my my stuff a little better, I'm just going to wipe this out for a second. So bear with me while I do this. This is wipe this thing out, right? The great thing, this also has a text tool that I'm going to use, so hopefully it'll be not as bad. So we'll say this. So again, the first command then is git init. Second command is, I'm going to take that space away. Second command is git add dot. The third command is git commit -m and then initial commit, right? And those are the three commands that I'm going to need, right? I'm going to need to do this. And what I want to do with this thing, right, these three commands that I have in here, right? With those three commands, I'm able to initialize the Git repository, so create that .git folder, right? I'm able to add all files that are currently in my project to the staging area. So I'm marking them as I need to make I want these files to be included in the Git repository. When I do a commit, what's a commit? Anybody know what a commit is? What's this commit stuff? Sorry, I better just do this. This stuff here. What's a commit? Right? We got to kind of do that, this part, right? Huh? Saving the current state. I like to think about it as a snapshot. I want you to think about when I say commit, it's a snapshot of the current state of your files. All right, that's what a snapshot is, or a commit, right? So I'm going to do this over and over again, yeah? Every time I change the current state of my files, like I add a file, remove a file, update a file, delete a file, whatever I'm going to do, right? My current state of my project is going to change, and therefore I need to do another commit. Is there a connection here with GitHub right now, the way it is? No, right? This is just local to your machine. So local to this thing right here, right? Local. This is not, thank you, sir.
Don't say then do it.
Oh, I know you love me, thank you. Right?
If you can, try to plug it in. There should be a second drop there. If
Okay.
it works, great. If not,
It doesn't
just switch to the other one and pull it up to you.
All right, I'll do it on the break. Thanks.
Yeah.
So commits, right? Commits are snapshots, but we're not connected anywhere to GitHub, right? Again, I want you to think of it, of GitHub as a cloud service, right? That's what I want you to think of it as. So GitHub is this cloud service, and so let's just draw a little cloud here, right? The sunny cloud with sunshine. We'll draw a sun up here too. How about that? Here's the sun and the clouds, right? And this sun and clouds, this up in the clouds, this is GitHub, right? So here's GitHub. GitHub and your local machine, this thing here, right on the left, are totally different entities, right? GitHub also has a space that we're going to create here, right, for your files. And maybe you're going to have the same amount of commits that are up on GitHub eventually, right? But in order for us to connect, you know, our local machine to GitHub, we need to add a remote. That's what it's called. Okay? So I need a couple of additional commands that are underneath here. Let's add those commands in as well. So the commands are, right, we need to do something like this. We need to say git remote add, oops, git remote add, and then we're going to call the remote origin, right? That's typically the best practice for the remote. And then there's going to be some path, some URL path or whatever it's going to be, right? And it's going to be .git at the end, right? So it's some URL.git, whatever it is, right? So git remote add origin and then some URL. And then the next line is going to be git push, right? -u, oops, if I can type -u for unconditional, right? -u, origin, which remote it's going to, right? To the master branch, master. So those two commands are going to come after. Now again, those come after we do these ones. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Once we set up a remote, right? Once we set up a remote again, right? This is the remote. Okay. This push statement right here, this one, what it does is it uploads. So push equals to upload. Uploads to the remote. Okay, that's what push does. It uploads to the remote. And when it uploads to the remote, right, all your files that are local with the same amount of commits locally here are the same amount of commits that are remote over there. So the difference between Git and GitHub is GitHub, right, is a software as a service, right? That's what it is. It's like Dropbox, like Google Drive, like OneDrive, except it's not just drag and droppable. You're not going to drag and drop. You could do it. You could, but it's not drag and droppable. You can't control the folders the same way. We are able to share files and folders on GitHub, right? But we want to do it first by passing the information from our local Git repository, by doing these commands and pushing it, all our stuff up for the first time to GitHub. All right, so from Git local to GitHub remote. And whenever we want to grab stuff from GitHub, we do a pull, a git pull command, all right? So if I'm working with somebody else, and what's your name? I'm sorry, we haven't worked together. Clinton? So let's say Clinton and I are working together, right? So I start off, this is the typical way sometimes we work, right? Tom starts off, he puts stuff up on GitHub. I have my remote, I push the remote, and then Clinton, what he does is pull, by the way, Clinton is a great name. Clinton pulls down from the remote, right? And now he's got what I have, right? He's got all my files, all my project files. It's on his machine now. It's on his local machine, right? When he pulls down. And all the commits that I've made, all the snapshots that I have, right? Then he adds a commit, pushes to GitHub, and now I'm one commit behind. I'm one snapshot behind because he's pushed to GitHub after he's done his changes, but doesn't have to update me. Is there a connection here, right? A back and forth connection? Is this in sync, right? Is this in sync all the time? No. The only time GitHub is in sync is when you're pushing. When you do that push, that's when things sync up. Or the rest of the time, though, there is no sync, right? It doesn't remember what you've done. It just knows that here it is. You've pushed up, and that's it. Okay? So that's a very simple diagram, and I apologize. I'm not an artist, but I do my best as a technical artist, right? So I want you to think about those things. I want you to think about how Git and GitHub work together, because the biggest problem that we always have is we sit there and we say, I don't understand. I think Git and GitHub are kind of the same. People get confused what GitHub is and what Git is. All right. How do I set up Git and GitHub? That's the other question. All right, let's do that today. Let's do that right now. So I'm on the Windows machine, and again, forgive me if you're a Mac user, it's going to be a little easier because you already have Git and GitHub. What I want you to get to accomplish at the end of all this is the ability for you to do Git and then space and get some kind of information. If you get unrecognized command after you're done, it's because we need to change your environment variables. Let's go into this thing, all right? How do we do this? If I go up here, and if I want to download, there's two ways to get Git for Windows, right? I could do desktop.github.com. Desktop.github.com gives me the Git user interface, right? The user interface is UI. It's a little app that downloaded on Windows, and it does all those little commands I kind of put on the other screen for you, right? And you might say, well, Tom, why don't I do that? Why do I have to learn, kind of console? I hate console, right? Well, I understand that you hate console, but this is what part of this course is. You need to learn a little bit about console, right? And also, you need to understand the back end of how things work, how this tool is working on the back end. You need to understand that, right? So it helps you know what it's doing, what's happening on the back end with the tool. The reason why I'm saying this is one option is because when you install the desktop GitHub tool, right, it also installs GitHub on your system. That's good. That's a good thing. And it does a couple of other things, some other cleanup in the back end. But if, let's say, you don't want the desktop tool and you just want to just Git by itself, you can do that. If you go git-scm.com, right, you can certainly download Git, by itself, right? And again, this is a local version of Git with no user interface whatsoever, and it'll allow you to do the commands that I kind of indicated earlier, these ones, right? On your, on your, can I move that around? Yes. With two fingers, by the way. It allows you to do these commands, on your Windows machine. Sorry, kind of went too far. There we go. For now, though, for the most part, most people won't be able to do that, right? And the reason why they get an unrecognized command is because of their environment variables. So who knows where to find the environment variables on your Windows machine? Windows 10, Windows 8. How do you find those? What's a fast way? Anybody? Control panel, blah. You can do it in one step, right? You can go, I like that, like you're thinking. But what you just go here, and if I type in advanced system settings, right? Right here in the Windows, and click onto it, right? It'll bring up the panel, this little system properties window. On the bottom here is environment variables. Please go there with me now. For people, all Windows users, you need to do this, or else Git will never work for you, ever. Right? Environment variables, right? When I click environment variables, you're going to see something like this. Yours is going to obviously look different than mine because mine says you see users Tom, and it's going to be see users your name, right? Whatever your name is. And there, you know, except for if you're Clinton, because he's got a cool Mac. Who needs to do this, right? But if you're not, if you're someone who doesn't have a Mac, then you're going to see something like this. You need to change the path variable both here in your user variables, as well as your system variable area down here. If you don't do this, there's no guarantee that Git or Node or Mongo or anything else we install in the system will work for you on the command line. All right, that's bad. That's a lot of installation stuff, and people don't know how to go here. Again, I'm getting here through by searching for advanced system, system settings, right? And then I click on environment variables to get here. Okay. Okay, so how do I add it in? First of all, we have to know where Git is installed. And Git through GitHub is kind of a funny place it installs it, right? If you downloaded the GitHub tool, you need to find where GitHub is installed. And how do I do that? Well, if I go to my file explorer here, right? I'm going to go to my PC later. I'm going to go to my PC, and I'm going to go to C, right? And on my C drive, notice how I have access to, okay, I'm going to go to users, right? C users, right? Tom. And notice how Tom, in my Tom folder, I have access to app data, but you may not. App data is where it is, right? And the way to find that is if you go to view, see where I see, I want to see hidden items and file name extensions. I want to see those things. But you may want to just click on this options button. The options button will bring up another little dialog box. And inside view, you can see that I'm displaying file icon thumbnails. I'm displaying my file size information. I'm also displaying the full path in the title bar, and I'm showing hidden files, folders, and drives. And I'm also showing protected operating system files. I'm not hiding them. I'm showing them. If you don't do this, you may or may not see app.data, or any .git file, .git folder for your folders. You won't see them. But if you expose them, you'll see them, and they're kind of grayed out here, or they look a little fuzzy compared to these sharper ones, right? So if I get into app data, I have to go into local. This is where they install GitHub, I mean. And I got to go to GitHub, the first one. And under GitHub, there's something called portable Git and a hash. Here's the portable hash, right? And inside there, there's a bin, and there's also a command. If I go to bin, that's not the one, but command is the one that you want. So the whole path, if you want to find the whole path to this thing for me, I have to right-click and go edit address, and you can see that this is the whole user path. C:\users, Tom, app data, local, GitHub, portable Git, and whatever it is, and then at the end, command, right? You need to take this link, copy it, right? And then when you go back to your environment variables, right, you got to double click on the path. And then I've already done it, but you can see that you got to put it as a new item. You got to click new, and as a new item, you got to add it to the path. And I'm going to show you where I put mine. It's right here. That's how long ago I did it, right? I've added other things since then. But that's it. This is where it is. So C users Tom. So it has to be in the path. It has to be in the list. And you got to do it here as well as down here in this area. So both this path up here and this path to guarantee that it's always going to work, you know, across all users and across different programs. I found that that is the most compatible way of doing it. By the way, you're going to have to do this for Node.js. When I tell you go to your environment variables, you know what to do now, right? It's just different locations, right? For example, Node.js is in program files, right? So again, I would have to know where it is. So if I go to C program files, right? And when you install Node.js, it's under Node.js, right? That's what you have. That's the path right here. This is the path. If I kind of edit address, this path needs to be added to the path as well for Node.js. Okay? So that's what it means when I say you have to modify your environment variables. Some people say, well, Tom, you say you have to modify the environment variables, but I don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? This is what I'm talking about. If you don't do these steps, you will never be able to use Windows properly, right? I'm going to close these down because we're going to go back in here again. So at the end, you should be able to do something like this. Again, I bring it up. I should be able to do something like git, right? And I should be able to see this come up, not unrecognized command. Okay, not unrecognized command. If I see unrecognized command, that's bad. And if you've installed Node properly, and remember where we get Node? Because I want you to do that too. If I go to nodejs.org, right? Here's Node. There's two versions for Node, right? Because this course is all about Node, right? So there's one, that's the 6.9.4 LTS, which is the long-term stable version, right? And there's the other one that's 7.4.0. Get this one, 7.4.0. Why? Because we're developers, right? And it's okay not to have this one. It's okay to use this one, all right? Here's the long-term, stable version schedule. Take a look. This is what it looks like. They've kind of produced this up on GitHub, right? So right now we're at version 6 for Node, and we're hovering between now. We're still going to be an active long-term, kind of long-term stable or stability version, if you will, or maintenance version for this one until probably most of this year, until the end, or probably till the middle of April 2018. From April 2018 on, we're going to be in maintenance mode, which means they're not going to continue to update this anymore. That's Node.js version 6. Plans for version 7, notice that just like they did for Node version 5, plans for version 7, they're going to take information from the active LTS version 6, and pump it into version 7. And that's the current version. It's going to continue right across into April 2017. But they're probably going to come up with a version 8 at some point, just like they did with version 6, right? Probably somewhere around the same time frame, around April. So I can expect around April time frame, we're going to have version 8 pop out sometime. Remember I talked about how web is the most difficult platform to develop on? Because this is the reason. Because Node, our backend server technology for JavaScript, is changing every 3 months, right? It's crazy. It makes it more challenging for us as developers. All right, so please install Node. That's the second installation. So GitHub first, and then Node. Yeah. You gotta do the same thing on Node. But if you're using Mac, can I make a recommendation for Mac for you? If you're a Mac user, and I know that you're a Mac user too, right? Linux? Linux. Okay, Linux. If you're a Mac user, though, I'm just going to bring up the Mac side for a second. I highly recommend don't download and install Node right from the website. It's better to use Homebrew to install Node. And what I mean is you're going to install Node with Homebrew Mac. Why? Because if you don't install Node with Homebrew, and I kind of said this a couple times this week, right? Then you're going to have to do a sudo command, right? Or sudo command. Every single time you do an npm something or a node installation, you're going to have to go sudo, or sudo. On Linux, no, you will be fine, right? But on Mac, every single time you're going to have to do this. So this is the best way to install Node for Mac, okay? And I'll put this link, right? This link here, I'll put it up on Slack. So, and I'll say the best way to install Node for Mac, for people who are Mac users, right? And that's the way I want to flow. When I have a link, or if you guys have a link you want to share with me, we populate it here up on Slack, and that way we all kind of share information. That's what it's all about, right? Or if you have a question and you're remote, you can put it up here, and then I can kind of go back here during the break and kind of check and see if there's any questions. All right, so by now you should have, if you've downloaded and installed GitHub, Git should be working, right? GitHub should be working. On Mac, Git is already installed, and you should be able to do something like Git and then minus version. You should try this on the Windows machine too, and you should get some kind of version of Git. I got 2.9.2. On Windows machine, if I go do the same thing, so if I clear screen, so CLS, on the Windows machine, I go Git minus version. I got 2.9.2, right? You might have some other version. It's okay, right? Also for Node on the Windows machine, if I go Node -v, I get 7.3.0. Notice that I'm behind the latest release, right? I haven't updated it yet, and that was only a month ago, right? It's kind of changed 7.3 a month ago. Now I'm 7.4, right? Because that's how fast it moves. And I'm even further back on my Windows machine, right? If I go Node -v, that's my Mac machine is 7.1, right? So that was like a month before that, right? And my NPM version, NPM is the Node package manager that comes with Node, right? If I go NPM -v, it's 4.0.2, but on Windows, for whatever reason, if I go NPM -v, it's 3.8.9, right? These are all packages that come together with Node and NPM, and we'll talk about what they are. So you should be able to do something like this on your machines. If you are a Windows user right now, and if you follow my instructions with the environment variables, you should have access to Git on the command line and Node on the command line. If anyone doesn't have that, you need to fix that right now because we're going to move on. Okay? Those two things. And we did it through the environment variables, remember, right? Oh, the path? Oh, you didn't catch that path? All right. It looks like this. Again, if I was going to go through it, it's C for GitHub, C:, right? / users, whatever your username is, right? And then you're going to scroll down to app data. If you can't see app data, you need to make your files visible, right? Local, right? GitHub. If you install, oops, the GitHub tool, GitHub, I meant, not Georgian College. And then portable Git, right? Under portable Git, command. That's the path. And if you want to see it, it looks like this, right? And actually, you can't see it all because my path is really long, right? Because of the hash. This hash, again, they made it so that it's relative to my machine. So that is, you have to take care of everything. Yes. Your GitHub account. That's the cloud service. Remember the cloud, nothing to do with your local Git repository. You need to fix that. You need to set up Git locally on your machine, right? That's what we're doing right here. And there's two ways. Remember I showed you, you can download the desktop tool. That's the first way. And the other way is to install Git by downloading the Git for Windows, right? Either way, you got to get it. Yes. Homebrew? Yeah. Yeah, that's your password. Why not? Oh, you can't type anything. Yeah. It doesn't show it. It doesn't show it, but it's actually doing it. Yeah. So when you do sudo anything or password, it's actually your password for the computer, for your account. Okay. As long as you're admin. Okay. Sorry, say that again. Uh-huh. Okay, we're gonna have to. I have to do that with you on the break. I can't stop and continue with you. But if Selena, can you take a look at it for me? Thanks, I appreciate that. All right. So, any other questions around Git or GitHub? Anyone else doesn't have any help or they need help with anybody? If someone's made it work, help your partner. Help the guy next to you. Make sure that everyone knows how to do Git, GitHub, of course, to sign up, and Node.js. Those are the big ones. All right. All right. So everyone now, I'm assuming that everyone can do, something like this, like some of these commands: Git minus version, Node -v with a space, of course, npm -v with a space. Right. If you can do these three things, you're golden. That means you're ready to go. We're most of the way through. We still got to install MongoDB. That's the next step. Okay. And we're doing installation day today. Installation day. And then we'll do a little bit of a demo to get things going. All right. MongoDB, what the hell is that? Right? Well, you want to go to mongodb.org, mongodb.org, right? Remember what we talked about? We talked about how originally JavaScript was just on the client side, right? It was just on the client side. And then we had Node.js, right? So we had Node.js, right? Node.js produced JavaScript, right? Produced JavaScript on the back end, right? And if you look at the About page, I like what it says here about a Node. It says it's an asynchronous event-driven JavaScript runtime. That's what it is, right? We'll talk about what this is in a bit. But that's really what it is. It's Node on the back end, right? And then we have MongoDB, which is really a NoSQL database. So if I look at what NoSQL database is, NoSQL database, it's a database that, like it says here on Wikipedia, and it's actually a very good definition, it's a non-relational database. That's what I want you to take from that. So it's not something like that uses structured query language. It doesn't do that. It actually looks a lot of times, most NoSQL databases use JSON format, right? For the way they have their records, which are actually called collections, right? And their databases, right? Their containers, right? So that's what it kind of looks like, right? So, I mean, again, I guess I want you, sorry, actually a collection is more of a table. Collections are tables, and then records are properties, you know, of the table and so on. Those are the way we're gonna think about things. But the same thing, it's basically what it is when you look at MongoDB, it's a NoSQL database that uses JavaScript. So we need to install MongoDB, but before we do that, we need to set up some stuff, both on Windows and Mac, by the way, right? For Mac, it's a little easier, but for Windows, what you need to do is you got to go into their PC, and under your PC, you got to go to C. One day when this thing, it's you know, my virtual machine. Under C, you got to create a new folder in the C, on the root of C, right? Called data. Please do that. And under data, you need to create a new folder called DB. Okay, that's what you have to do for Windows. Data, and our data, you have to create a folder called DB. Okay, those two folders are the ones by default that are going to be used by Mongo. Mongo installation on the Mac, slightly different. Okay, we're going to talk about the same thing with Linux, slightly different installation on Mac and Linux, right? But once you have those two data, the data and the DB folder that are empty, there's nothing inside of them. Notice mine's not empty. Mine has some stuff inside, right? These are just databases, right? These are databases that exist, and I've created different databases, and this is where they're stored, right? A record of where they're stored. They're just like JSON files, right? Equivalent. Actually, they use something called BSON, right? Yeah, instead of JSON. It's very similar to JSON, but it's another format altogether. All right. Now, once you've got that done, you've created your folder. And this is still Windows. We're going to go back to Mac in a second. I need to click download. Now, this is where we get into a little bit of trouble, right? You have, on the Windows side of the house, there's Windows, Linux, OS X, or we should be really Mac OS right now, and Solaris, right? Notice that there's only Windows Server packages here, right? There's Windows Server R2, and there's one with and without SSL. Choose this one, guys and girls. This one. That'll work for us. Windows Server 2008, 64-bit without SSL support, x64. And again, why would I pick this part? Because, remember, we're going to test locally on our Windows machines, right? We're going to do that. But we're mostly going to work with MLab. Remember, I told you to sign up. I told you to sign up for MLab, sign up for Heroku. Okay, you need to do that. MLab is MongoLab. It used to be called MongoLab. It's MongoDB, right? Remember? Software as a service or platform as a service. It's up there, right? So we use MongoDB on the cloud, right? I don't want to do MongoDB locally. If I can, we want to try and share the information I want to use multiple websites to use the same data store, right? So I don't want to make it so that's local. If it's local to my machine and I make a website that's online with Heroku or Azure, it can't access my data store on my machine, right? Got to have a database somewhere in the cloud. And Mongo MLab, used to be called MongoLab, is that solution. So please sign up for that. So this is nice for testing locally MongoDB. We're going to set it up. When you set it up and it works on the Windows machine, you need to use the whole command prompt window for just running the server, right? And it looks like this. You need to execute a MongoD command, MongoD, or if I can type MongoD or MonGod command, right? And when you type this thing off and press enter, you can see that it's running my server on port 27017. If you can't type MonGod or MongoD on your Windows installation, it's because you need to modify the environment variables, right? It won't work without. You have to go back into your environment variables, put the path, and the path from Mongo is slightly different. The path from Mongo is C:\program files. Usually it's inside of its own folder, MongoDB, right? Under server, there's a version number. Mine was 3.2. Yours is going to be 3.4, right? And then inside bin, that's the path, right? And you got to put this path in the path variable in your environment variables. Okay? Again, if you don't do this, you will not have access to your MongoDB, which is required for this course because we're going to be testing locally. So get that done today. All right? And again, you notice that this is running in an alternate window, right? And I would have to run a second window. So there's another command prompt, right? In order for me to do something else. So the server runs in the background over here, and then you can do something like Mongo. And Mongo itself would connect to the server, and we can create a, I can switch to another database, right? Use Eddy. I used to call it database Eddy. And I switched to database Eddy. It never existed before, but now it does, right? All right, I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to get out of here, right? And you can see once I've done, the connection closes. So this is the server, the local Mongo server, MongoDB server, that we're going to be using to connect to later on in this course as we approach week 6 and 7, like I said earlier, right? Right now, or it's actually be earlier than that, but around week 4, right? Okay, so let's close this off. So I'm going to Control C for this one. So close this off. What is it like to install Mongo on Mac? That's a totally different installation. And the way it looks on Mac or Linux is different. So if I go mongodb.org, right, as an example, I click download, right? Now, on Mac, right, here's you can choose with SSL or without. I recommend without. It doesn't have to be with, right? But this is what you want to do. Is look what it says here. Instructions for installing with Homebrew. That's the one we want to use. Why? Sudo, right? Or sudo if you don't like the sudo command. And there'll be another one for Linux, another set of instructions for Linux, right? The installation is very, very important to follow here from a MongoDB perspective so you have to do a brew update and so on. It tells you what to do here for Mac, right? You still have to create the folders that I talked about, the data folder and the DB folder, and it tells you where to do that. If you follow the instructions here, notice that it's going to make a directory for DB and data that are empty. For the Mac, it'll be very similar for Linux, right? Because if you don't have this DB and data DB folder, then MongoD will never work. Now, I didn't do it exactly this way when I installed Mac, so I always have to do sudo, like this. Sudo mongod, right? And I always have to put in my password, but I still get this. It's very similar to what I got on PC, right? And I can still launch another terminal window, right? There's a new terminal window. Oops. Okay. Yeah, fine. And then I can go Mongo. Mongo will be accessing the Mongo, this thing here. And don't worry about some of these warnings. These warnings are simply because you're not adding enough processes, or you're not giving enough oomph to your server. We don't care about that. We're just running a little server so we can play, understand how Mongo works, right? Because we're going to be using MLab from the most part, right? Yes. Without SSL, yeah. But I would recommend follow the Homebrew install. Okay, again, Homebrew for Mac uses the best way. Because otherwise you would have to do sudo over and over again. It's terrible. All right, so we've installed Mongo. Yeah? Anyone not able to install MongoDB or have a problem? Please, by the way, there's some people that are going to tell me, and it's happened every time, hey, Tom, I can install MongoDB as a service on my Windows 10 machine. Yes, you can. Don't do it. Why would you want that? You're not going to be you're not going to run Mongo as your own private little server, right? Are you going to run Mongo server like in your house somewhere? No, right? So don't run it as a service because it's always going to run. Imagine you're playing a game. You're playing, I don't know, you downloaded and installed, I don't know, some kind of game on the PC that you love playing, but now you're running MongoDB on the back end. That's just going to be extra load and take extra memory for no reason, right? Don't do that. Only run Mongo when you need it. It's only for testing purposes. We're not using it to build any real server or anything like that, right? So I don't recommend installing Mongo as a service at all. Also, there are some people that say, hey, you can install Mongo locally for every project. That's crazy. That's like you have to install a local version of Mongo every time, right? And I don't agree with that. I think the centralized version is way better, right? You could make it portable because Mongo is portable, but why? I don't recommend that at all either. I think this is the easiest way to do it. So when it comes to that section, that time, remember, you're going to need NPM, you're going to need Git, and you're going to need Mongo, right? NPM is Node, right? So if you don't have those three things, I'm not going to go through this installation again. What am I going to say? See the video, right? So I can't. Look at it. This took an hour for me to do, right? And it sounds like it's like no problem, but it's not. It's like there's little idiosyncrasies to go through and install your stuff, right? You need to get this done right, guys and girls, because if you don't, then it's going to affect you for the rest of the course. I don't want that. I want this to be the only installation day if we can get away with it. All right, have we done in the installation for Mongo? Anyone not have it done? Are you okay? Oh, some people there? If you haven't done, people help the other people, right? Help the other people. Help, Selena, if you could help them again. That'd be very helpful. Thank you. I know I'm using you, Selena. I'm sorry. I'm going to pay back later, right? All right, so please make sure that everybody in the team, let's do this as a big team to make sure everyone's installed properly, because if we don't, I'm not going to cover it again. This is it, right? Okay, and we're going to take a short break, 10 minutes again. We were on the hour again. Let's take a short break, take a little washroom break, and all that kind of stuff, and then come back, okay?